Again, the more serious charge of manslaughter has been dropped. So what now does this mean for the lesser charge here and the implications when the jury resumes deliberations on Monday? Let's get that from Mark Eiglarsh, the criminal defense attorney extraordinaire, very good at this stuff. Mark, this was the big one, and this was the worrisome one, certainly if you're Mr. Kennedy. Now the issue then becomes what of this remaining charge?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a huge victory for the defense. But if I'm defending this case, I am really frustrated. The jurors were instructed when they went to deliberate, consider the main charge. And if they didn't prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, then go to the lesser charge. They've already considered the lesser charge by law. And so they came back and they said, we're deadlocked. We cannot agree. Now the judge is sending them back in to consider the lesser charge again. The defense has every right to argue this is coercive. The judge isn't saying you should find him guilty of the lesser, but it certainly implies that maybe there's something to it if the judge is making us go back and look at the lesser again.
So, Mark, the one thing that was very clear, the defense had already been arguing, renewed this request for a mistrial, and that was before the manslaughter charge was dropped. Obviously, it's going to add fuel to that fire. What is the likelihood of that?
Look, they need to make these arguments to preserve the record. So far, the judge hasn't legally done anything, in my opinion, to make this case come back on appeal. I'm just saying it's just not fair. The prosecutors took their best stab at the main charge, and 7 women, 5 men, over 4 days, 18 hours, studied both the main charge and the lesser charge, and they said you didn't prove it, state, and it should be done. But they're sending them back in? I find that to be torturous if you're the defense, and frustrating if you really believe in justice.
Can you get 12 jurors to agree on not even a criminally negligent charge?
Right. They couldn't do the main charge. Right. Now they got to go back and try to figure this out. I don't think so. I don't think these jurors who, for 18 hours, couldn't find him guilty of the lesser charge is now going to go back and say, you know what, I changed my mind. Okay, he's guilty. I think it's a waste of time, and I think it's unfair.
So what happens? Let's say they similarly feel that way. They can't come to agreement. Let's say on this second charge, does this all go away?
No, it doesn't go away. The prosecutors can retry him on that lesser charge. They can say, we're going to go file these charges. And I have a message for those prosecutors. Look, you put your best foot forward. And even if this wasn't political, which I think it was, you had 12 fair people who didn't believe in your case, assuming they stay deadlocked. Let it go. You've done your job.
You know, let's say he is found guilty, the lesser charge, the only one remaining. What would be a prison term for that, if it ever came to that?
He's facing a maximum of 4 years in prison for that. But I would like to think this judge says, wait, the maximum? No, that's for somebody maybe who has offended before, different set of facts. If he was driving his car recklessly and was looking at his phone in a reckless disregard of people and property, and then that led to a crash that killed someone, that would be justifiable for the lesser charge that they're now considering. Not a man who heroically went into a subway to protect innocent bystanders, and then, unfortunately, someone passed as a result of his actions. I don't see that as criminal, ever.
So, Mark, separately, we know that Jordan Neely, who was killed in this interaction on the train, his father has filed a civil complaint against Neely, or against Penny, I apologize. Now, that's a whole different standard here. What did you make of that?
It is. Fine. You want to sue him for money? Go right ahead. The burden of proof is merely 51%, much lower. Maybe you have a better shot proving this. And if you think that he was negligent civilly, then maybe you get a judgment against him and try to get money that he doesn't have. But to bring it into the criminal arena reeks of politics to me with these facts and circumstances. Again, I'd like to stay neutral, but I cannot. I feel very strongly that there is now a wave, a trend where prosecutors have people picketing outside of their offices and demand charges be brought, when normally they would just say, you know what, it was a tragic accident. It doesn't rise to the level of a criminal offense.
It seems that the judge was, again, forcing some sort of decision, a unanimous one at that, on the manslaughter charge. And they worked at that for the better part of 4 days here. Didn't come up with that. So the judge comes back and says, all right, we'll drop that. It looks a little shaky.
Well, he dropped it because the prosecutors asked him to drop it. He didn't do it on his own. He dropped it because prosecutors said, okay, oopsie, we didn't get what we wanted. How can we try to get a conviction still? Aha! Let's drop the main charge, because obviously we didn't get that. Let's send them back. And with the judge telling him to go back there and deliberate, maybe there's this implied thought that maybe the judge wants him to find him guilty of that lesser charge. Again, I'm not saying the prosecutors are doing this. I'm not saying the judge is doing it. I'm saying that's the implied message, which why it stinks. And if I'm the defense attorney, I'm moving for a mistrial. Unfortunately, I don't know that I'd get it.
It does make you wonder whether this reeks of desperation here. Then either, whether it's the judge or whether prosecution now trying to push this to get some pound of flesh in this. But how do you think this sorts out?
I think it does reek of desperation, but here's the positive part. Let's flip it. Let's say they go back there and they stick to their guns and they do not come up with a unanimous verdict, and then it's a hung jury. I would like to think, and if prosecutors, if you're watching, please listen to me, that now they can say they even had them go back on the lesser charge again after 18 hours, and they still couldn't get a unanimous decision. That would be enough to turn to the families and the world and say, we did everything we could. We're not going to prosecute them. Case is done. We're asking the final charge to be dismissed.
Mark, thank you very much.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.